Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. I think it's safe to say we've all felt that competitive urge, whether it's in our careers, our hobbies, or even just trying to snag the best parking spot at the grocery store. But have you ever really stopped to ask yourself, why? Why do we as humans compete?
Well, that's precisely what we'll be unpacking today.
It's a huge question.
Yeah.
And to really get to the bottom of it, we're turning to an AI analysis titled The AI Perspective on Why Humans Compete. Now, don't worry, this isn't about robots taking over the world. This analysis uses that neutral AI perspective to dissect the reasons behind our competitive spirit, pulling from fields like evolutionary biology, psychology, and sociology. We're aiming to highlight the key takeaways for you so that you can come away with a deeper, more informed understanding of why we compete and how it impacts us. So let's get started. Where does this ingrained competitive streak even come from?
Well, that AI analysis takes us right back to the beginning, to our evolutionary roots.
Okay, so back to the basics.
Exactly. You see, at its core, the analysis points to those fundamental drives for survival and resource acquisition. Think about it. In early human history, resources like food, water, shelter, and mates, they weren't unlimited, they were finite.
Right, so limited supply.
Exactly. And so individuals and groups who were better at getting these essentials well, they were simply more likely to survive and reproduce. This is a bedrock principle of natural selection, and it impacted everyone, regardless of their age or gender. And the AI analysis argues that this is one of the key reasons why you are wired to compete.
So it was a matter of life and death. It wasn't just about wanting to be the best. It was about survival.
Precisely. It was about adapting and thriving in a challenging environment.
Okay, that makes sense. So can you give me a more concrete example of how this might have played out for our early human ancestors?
Sure. Let's take those early human tribes we often hear about. Imagine one tribe figured out a more efficient way to hunt. Maybe they developed better tools or more coordinated hunting strategies. This would give them a more reliable food supply.
Makes sense. So they're eating better, right?
Right. And as a result, they become stronger, healthier, and have a better chance of flourishing. They might even be able to outcompete another tribe for the best hunting grounds or access to vital water sources.
So it wasn't about being mean or aggressive. It was about doing what they needed to do to ensure their survival.
Exactly. It was about meeting those basic needs in a world where resources were often scarce.
Wow, it really puts things in perspective. Now, the analysis also delves into the role of genetics, but it's not suggesting that there's a specific competition gene, right?
It's far more nuanced than that. The AI proposes that certain genetic predispositions, traits that could have given someone an edge in competitive situations, might have been favored over many generations.
Interesting. Can you elaborate on what kinds of traits you mean?
Absolutely. Think about things like physical strength, intelligence, and even specific social skills that helped people navigate the complexities of group dynamics. Throughout history, these traits have often been highly valued in leaders, warriors, or just in everyday life.
It's true. Those who excel in these areas often seem to rise to the top.
Exactly. And those individuals with these genetic inclinations, well, they may have been more successful in securing resources or achieving a higher social standing. And that, in turn, could have influenced how their genes were passed down over time.
Okay, so we've gone way back to the beginning and explored the evolutionary groundwork for our competitive nature. But what about our daily lives? What are the psychological forces driving this competitive fire within us?
Now we're getting to the heart of it. The AI perspective highlights this deep-seated human desire for status and recognition within our social structures.
We all want to feel important, right?
Absolutely. And in almost every society, higher status often equates to greater access to resources and opportunities. Think about it. Competition, in many ways, becomes a means to climb those social ladders and earn respect and admiration from others. This desire is a powerful motivator that cuts across age, culture, gender, you name it.
Right. Like, think about a student who works tirelessly to get the best grades in their class. It's not just about the learning itself. It's about the recognition, the opportunities that those high marks might open up for them.
A perfect example. You see this across cultures and age groups. Academic achievement often serves as a marker of status and a potential pathway to a brighter future. The competition for those top grades reflects this innate human desire to be recognized and to advance within our social structures.
It makes sense, striving for that top spot. But there are also times when we compete, even when there aren't those obvious external rewards. The AI analysis also talks about intrinsic motivation and self-improvement.
Yes. This is a crucial point. Competition isn't always about external validation. It can be deeply personal as well. The challenge of competing, whether against yourself or others, can be a driving force for self-improvement. It pushes us to refine our skills, expand our knowledge, and strive to become better versions of ourselves.
So it's like that inner drive to constantly improve, to push your own boundaries.
Precisely. Take, for instance, a young musician who dedicates hours upon hours to mastering a challenging piece for a competition. While winning a prize might be nice, the real motivation often lies in the inherent satisfaction of pushing their own limits, of achieving mastery over something difficult. And that sense of accomplishment, that transcends any external factors like gender or age.
Right, so the reward is in the journey itself.
Exactly. It's about testing yourself and experiencing the joy of personal growth. It reminds me of runners who are always striving to beat their own personal best times, even if they know they won't win the actual race.
It's about that internal satisfaction of knowing you've pushed yourself further than before.
Exactly. And that's another psychological factor that the AI analysis highlights: the enjoyment of the challenge itself and the sense of accomplishment it brings. For many, the act of competing is inherently rewarding. It's about the anticipation, the effort, the struggle, and ultimately the feeling of achievement, regardless of whether you come out on top in the traditional sense.
Like people who run marathons. They know they probably won't win, but the challenge of completing such a grueling race, pushing their physical and mental limits, that's the real prize.
Absolutely. It's about testing your own capabilities and experiencing that sense of exhilaration that comes from overcoming obstacles.
Okay, so we've covered those deep evolutionary roots and the internal psychological motivations behind competition. But the AI analysis doesn't stop there. It goes on to explore how the societies we live in shape our competitive instincts.
This is where the sociocultural influences come into play, and it's a really important piece of the puzzle. Societies often instill those competitive values in us from a very young age. Think about it: our education systems, the stories we're told, the expectations we absorb from our families and cultures, they all play a role. The emphasis on achievement, on striving to be the best, it's often deeply ingrained in us from childhood.
It's like we're conditioned to compete almost from the moment we're born.
In a way, yes. You're constantly being evaluated and compared to others. Take our graded school systems, for instance. From the moment you step into a classroom, you're assessed, ranked, and tested against your peers.
It's true. Grades, rankings, standardized tests, it all fosters a sense of competition, whether we're consciously aware of it or not.
Precisely. And this constant comparison shapes how we view ourselves and our abilities in relation to others, and it doesn't stop there.
Right, because then we enter the workforce. And in many parts of the world, we're thrown into a capitalist economic system that is, by its very nature, built on competition.
You hit the nail on the head. Capitalist systems thrive on competition, whether it's between businesses vying for customers or individuals competing for jobs. It's all around us.
It really is inescapable.
Yeah.
So the AI is telling us that it's not just our biology or our psychology, but also the very fabric of our societies that shape our competitive instincts.
It's this intricate interplay of all these factors. But it's important to remember that competition isn't a monolithic force. It manifests differently across cultures.
So it's not the same everywhere you go.
Right. The AI analysis emphasizes that while the tendency to compete might be universal, how it plays out and the values attached to it can vary significantly from culture to culture. Some cultures might emphasize individual achievement and outperforming others, while others may prioritize group success and cooperation.
So it's like the difference between those who value individual sports versus team sports.
A great analogy. In team sports like soccer or basketball, the emphasis is often on collective competition, where the group's success is paramount. Individual achievements are important, but they ultimately contribute to the team's overall goal.
Right, it's about working together towards a shared objective.
Exactly. On the other hand, in sports like tennis or golf, the focus is more on individual achievement against an opponent in a one-on-one setting. These cultural differences shape how people view competition, the forms of competition that are most valued, and how they approach it.
It's fascinating how culture adds another layer to this whole dynamic. Now, the AI analysis introduces this concept of the need to be number one. It feels like so many people are driven by this intense desire to be at the top, to be the best.
It's a powerful motivator. And the AI suggests that it often stems from a combination of those deep psychological desires we talked about earlier: the longing for status, the need for recognition, and the boost to your self-esteem that often comes with reaching the pinnacle of success.
Like in a competitive environment, Being number one often signifies the highest level of achievement.
Exactly. And with that often comes tangible rewards, social recognition, and a profound sense of personal satisfaction.
But isn't there a potential downside to this relentless pursuit of being the best? I mean, it can be pretty exhausting.
Absolutely. While the drive to excel can be a positive force, it can turn unhealthy when it leads to extreme stress, cutthroat behavior, or even neglecting other important aspects of life, like collaboration and personal well-being.
So it's about finding a balance, about being aware of when that drive starts to become detrimental.
Exactly. It's about understanding your motivations and ensuring that your competitive spirit serves you rather than consumes you.
Now, here's a point in the analysis that really struck me. The paradox of violent sports, and why people are willing to put their bodies at risk to compete. It's something that's always intrigued me.
It is a complex issue. The AI analysis explores this in depth, especially when it comes to younger individuals who participate in these sports.
I mean, why would someone knowingly subject themselves to the potential for serious injury?
The motivations are complex. While the desire to win and be the best is certainly a factor, particularly at the professional level, the analysis points to other factors as well, especially among younger people.
Okay, so what are some of those other reasons?
One significant factor is the sheer physical challenge and the sense of mastery that comes from excelling in a demanding sport.
So there's a sense of pride in pushing your physical limits.
Absolutely. There's also the powerful sense of camaraderie and belonging that comes from being part of a team, sharing those intense competitive experiences.
Right, that team spirit, that bond forged through shared challenges.
Exactly. Then there are the cultural norms and expectations that can come into play. In some cultures, participating in certain sports, even those with a high risk of injury, can be seen as a rite of passage or a way to earn respect. And of course, for those who reach the professional level, there are the extrinsic rewards like financial compensation and widespread recognition.
So it's a combination of physical challenge, social connection, cultural influences, and potential rewards that make those risks seem worthwhile.
Precisely. It's a multifaceted issue with no easy answers.
And what about the willingness to push through pain and risk injury, especially at a young age?
That willingness can be influenced by a combination of these factors. Sometimes there's a lack of fully developed risk assessment, especially among younger participants. The intense desire to fit in, to meet those societal or peer expectations, can sometimes overshadow a more rational consideration of the long-term consequences.
It's a lot for a young person to process.
It is, and it's something that coaches, parents, and society as a whole need to be mindful of.
Now, let's switch gears for a moment and look at how human competition compares to competition in the animal kingdom. The AI analysis makes some interesting distinctions.
This is where the differences become really apparent. While animals also compete, their competition is primarily driven by immediate survival needs, securing food, finding a mate, defending territory. Once those needs are met, the competitive drive often subsides.
So it's more about those basic instinctual drives.
Exactly. It's about ensuring their survival in the here and now.
And they don't engage in those more abstract forms of competition that we humans do.
Not really. You won't see animals holding intellectual debates or competing in art contests or navigating the complexities of economic rivalries.
So no animal stock market.
Not quite. Their competition is largely driven by instinct and their biological needs.
And what about social hierarchies in the animal kingdom?
It's interesting. The AI analysis points out that many animal societies establish those hierarchies through competition as a way to manage resources and reduce conflict within the group.
So it's a way to maintain order.
Exactly. Once that hierarchy is established, it often helps to regulate competition. But, and this is a key difference, animal social hierarchies tend to be more rigid and fixed compared to the more fluid and dynamic nature of human social structures.
So there's less opportunity for social mobility in the animal kingdom.
Generally speaking, yes.
It seems like animal competition is much more straightforward, more directly linked to survival, whereas human competition is infused with all these psychological and social complexities.
Absolutely. Our capacity for abstract thought, language, and complex social interactions adds layers of meaning and motivation to our competitive behavior.
So it's not just about survival, it's about status, recognition, and a whole host of other factors.
Precisely.
Now, the AI perspective takes a really interesting turn after exploring competition in such detail. It actually shifts its focus to cooperation, suggesting that understanding why we compete can provide valuable insights into how to encourage greater cooperation.
This is where the analysis offers a more hopeful perspective.
So it's not all about cutthroat competition.
Not at all. The AI reminds us that our evolutionary history wasn't solely about competition. Cooperation played a vital role in our survival as well. Living in groups provided protection from predators, made hunting and gathering more efficient, and facilitated the sharing of resources and knowledge.
So we're wired for cooperation just as much as we are for competition.
That's right. And by understanding those underlying drivers of competition, things like resource scarcity, the desire for status, and the fear of missing out, well, we can strategically address those factors to make cooperation a more attractive and effective option.
So how do we actually put this into practice? The AI analysis outlines some specific strategies.
One key approach is to recognize and emphasize that cooperation itself is an evolutionary success story. It's about highlighting how collaboration has been essential to human progress and survival throughout history.
So instead of just saying, hey everyone, let's cooperate, it's about showing how working together has benefited humanity for millennia.
Precisely. Framing cooperation not just as a nice thing to do, but as a smart and effective strategy for achieving shared goals.
That makes sense. What's another strategy?
Another crucial step is to address the perception of scarcity that often fuels competition.
The idea that there's not enough to go around.
Exactly. By working towards a more equitable distribution of resources and promoting a sense of abundance whenever possible, you can reduce those anxieties that often lead to excessive competition.
So it's about creating more level playing field and fostering a sense of shared prosperity.
That's the idea. Another effective strategy is to leverage social structures to actively reward cooperative behaviors.
Interesting. So designing systems that incentivize collaboration.
Precisely. This could involve things like creating team-based incentives in the workplace, recognizing collaborative achievements in communities, and encouraging leadership styles that value mutual support over individual rivalry.
So making it advantageous for people to work together.
Exactly. And then there's the power of shared goals and threats. Just as early humans cooperated to face common dangers, we, in the modern world, are confronted with challenges like climate change and global pandemics. Highlighting these shared threats and emphasizing that cooperation is essential to overcoming them can help to unite people towards a common purpose.
So it's about reminding us that we're all in this together.
Exactly, and that we're much stronger when we work together. You can also tap into that desire for status and recognition by shifting the focus from individual accomplishments to collective achievements.
So celebrating team wins rather than just individual victories.
Precisely. Highlighting the positive outcomes of successful collaborations and recognizing the contributions of everyone involved can channel that desire for recognition towards a shared goal.
So it's about fostering a sense of we instead of me. What else can we do?
It's also important to utilize intrinsic motivation in collaborative environments. When we work with others, we're exposed to new ideas, skills, and perspectives. This can lead to both personal and collective growth.
So cooperation can be a learning experience in itself.
Absolutely. And finally, it's about actively cultivating a culture of cooperation through education, media messaging, and community initiatives. By consistently highlighting stories of successful collaboration, you can gradually shift societal norms towards a greater appreciation for working together.
It's about changing the narrative, showing that cooperation can be just as rewarding, if not more so, than cutthroat competition.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that while competition has its place, cooperation is equally fundamental to human success.
Wow, what an incredible journey through the complexities of human competition. To sum it up, we explored the evolutionary basis of competition, those primal instincts for survival and resource acquisition. We then dove into the psychological factors, the desire for status, the drive for self-improvement, and even the enjoyment of a good challenge. And we didn't forget the crucial role of society and culture in shaping our competitive instincts. We examined those cultural variations in how competition plays out, and we even touched upon that often intense desire to be number one. We even explored some of those darker sides of competition, like the paradox of violent sports, and we contrasted our competitive behaviors with those in the animal kingdom.
A lot to think about, right?
Absolutely. But perhaps the most crucial takeaway is that understanding the roots of our competitive urges can actually provide us with a roadmap to fostering greater cooperation.
That's the key. It's not about eliminating competition altogether. It's about understanding its origins, its nuances, and ultimately how to channel it towards more collaborative and beneficial outcomes.
So here's a final thought for you, our listener. How can you apply these insights in your own life? How can you shift your perspective and your actions to foster more cooperation in your workplace, your community, and even in your personal relationships? It's a question worth pondering as we navigate this complex world together. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.
Until next time.
Bye, everyone.
This is DigitView.